Hey there, Jordan Sheridan live on YouTube, or shall I say, FuTube, right before Thanksgiving. Hope everyone has some plans for the holidays. Thank you to Squirrel Lips. I gotta do something for you, Squirrel Lips. Squirrel Lips, you're like the first one, almost every single day. You're the first one to get the super chat going. Thank you for the $1.99. Every single amount counts. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I try for the 73 people watching right now, and press the share button. I try very hard to always keep it real, with the audience. So I'm gonna keep it real. I didn't have a lot of time to prepare for today's report. I think you'll like why I didn't have a lot of time to prepare for this. I got some stories and some topics. I just want to give you advance notice that a lot of the research that I do before I start topics has not been done. So Jen is working feverishly to get some information. So she'll be sending me some information while I'm live. However, before I've come live, I did almost a 1 hour interview with Greg Palast. Greg Palast is, to me, one of the great investigative journalists in the world. Because he's one of the great investigative journalists in the world, of course, he's been blackballed from corporate media. Greg Palast is someone who has been on the ground. He is an old school reporter with a notepad and a old school hat, and he's been on the ground basically exposing all of the rampant election fraud and election theft. Thank you, Tammy. $20 before the super chat. Hey, you don't need money for well, maybe you need money for a turkey, but you don't need money for extra cake for dessert. Hand your money over to Status Quo. We'll do well with it. If you give us your money, you'll be less full on Thanksgiving, and you'll be more full with information. So thank you, Tammy, for the $20. Can't thank you enough. So, and by the way, just a reminder, folks, I'm trying not to, really nauseate you, but we are pushing this GoFundMe. So obviously, if you feel you would rather contribute in the super chat, feel free to do that. If it's not too much of a trouble, we'd love you to contribute in the GoFundMe, preferably, because we're trying to get the number of people who have contributed up. So we're at 347 people in 2 months at $21,460. So Jen will put the link to our GoFundMe right there in the super chat. Obviously, money's money. So if it's easier for you, feel free to do it in the super chat. But if you don't mind, we prefer the GoFundMe right now just to grow those numbers. So I interviewed Greg Palast, who has been on the ground not just this year, but in 2016, in 2014, in 2012, in 2010, in 2008, for presidential elections and midterm elections, exposing the insane amount of basically election frauds, voter suppression, election theft, which I would consider the election that just happened in Georgia. And we spoke for an hour. We went from election fraud and voter suppression. We spoke in depth about the corrupt corporate media. He named names. He has a very, very interesting story about one Jake Tapper. If you followed my live stream on Sunday, I did a marathon live stream. I called out Jake Tapper for his shameful, disgraceful, idiotic interview of Stacey Abrams. Well, Greg Palast has a little story about Jake Tapper from 20 years ago. I think you'll want to hear that. He also had really cool stories about, doing journalism. He told me he's considering going back to London because in Europe, they actually do real journalism in Europe. And when you break massive news in Europe, it's on the front page. Where in America, if you break massive news like he's been breaking, like Jen and I broke in Flint, you have to fight just to get them to cover it because the media here is so corrupt. Thank you, Gabriel. 100 SEK from Sweden, I believe. Hopefully for more media coverage of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is great for the progressive movement. Heard about Tulsi's swing against Trump on Twitter. Keep up the good work, Jordan. I did see Tulsi's tweet against. So good. I'll try to pull up that tweet. She basically called Trump a little bitch to Saudi Arabia, which he is. Ooh, there goes my monetization. I cursed. So keep it coming in the super chat or the GoFundMe. And by the way, I started today. Another reason I've been busy. I started emailing, not like a mass email list, but individually emailing GoFundMe donors. I plan on emailing, if I can, every single person who has contributed to GoFundMe, because not only are we grassroots, but we truly appreciate each contribution. So I began today emailing some folks. So hopefully some of you watching received emails from me. So, I'm going to play. I'm going to play a little bit of that interview with Greg Palast for you. It's not edited yet or anything, so Ty hasn't even looked at it yet. So it's not going to have any graphics or anything like that, just him and I. I'm going to play the full thing on Sunday. So if you don't know, to all 97 of you watching, don't make any plans for Sunday, because I am in the house. Marathon live stream, Sunday, noon, Eastern. Be there or don't ever talk to me again. This will be my last Sunday marathon for at least 2 weeks, because I'm going on vacation on December 1st for a much, much long-needed vacation. I was supposed to go on this vacation last year. However, I got fired from my job, if you recall, so I couldn't. So I will be on vacation starting December 1st, so let's have some fun this Sunday. I might even try to go for my record. 3 Sundays ago, I was 7.5 hours. I was 7.5 hours I was live. So I might try to break that record this Sunday. We're doing these live stream marathons to raise money. So it's a super chat live stream, and it's also a GoFundMe type of live stream. So I hope you could join us. If not for the whole thing, at least some of it. Starts at noon Eastern time Sunday, and I think I'm going to play the Greg Palast interview, which is almost an hour, at noon Eastern. So tune in. We need you. I live for Sundays now because you join me and keep me going. So those are all the housekeeping notes. I hope everyone is get excited for Thanksgiving. And I don't know when he's putting it up, but I recorded an interview with Jimmy Dore the other day, so hopefully it will go up this week. Thomas, thanks for the $5 in the super chat. I'm 62 and voted since I was 18, missed one election. What we have are not elections. I couldn't agree more, Thomas, and when you see this interview with Greg Palast, he's going to back it up. We are in very dangerous territory as far as the rigged, not just economic system, not just political system, but we don't have free and fair elections in this country. And Greg Palast puts it into perfect, clear language. So press the share button. Let's get this out. I will start with Nancy Pelosi because it's beginning to look like she will. So she's starting to, get the necessary people to move over to her for her to win the speakership of the House. Nancy Pelosi kicked off another Democratic detractor Wednesday, putting the California Democrat one step closer to retaining the speaker's gavel as the opposition against her appears to be slowly crumbling. Congressman Brian Higgins, a New York Democrat who has criticized Pelosi for months and vowed repeatedly to vote against her in the new Congress, announced his support for the California Democrat. It is likely that Nancy Pelosi is going to be the speaker, Higgins said in an interview explaining his change of mind. To be truthful about it, not only is there not a viable alternative, right now there's not an alternative, period. The Buffalo News first reported Higgins' reversal on Pelosi just days before Higgins had signed onto a letter opposing her, and he told Politico repeatedly in an interview that he wouldn't back Pelosi under any circumstances. I'd be curious if Miss Pelosi and him met in a back room and she made some promises, wouldn't you? Well, that sounds kind of dirty. Made some political promises. You know what I mean. Oy vey. For years, Congressman Pelosi is winning now, but Pelosi is winning now, so circumstances apparently have changed enough for Higgins to reconsider his recent fervent opposition to her. Quote, for years, Congressman Higgins has been an extraordinary leader on the issue of achieving quality, affordable health care for all Americans. His Medicare buy-in proposal is central to this debate as we work to build on the Affordable Care Act, Pelosi said in a statement released shortly after news of Higgins' volte-face. Quote, we are looking forward to working together to lower the cost of health care for hardworking families and raise their paychecks. All the usual Democratic progressive platitudes she offers that rarely actually come to fruition. And just a personal anecdote here. I just made a few calls because right now I'm on insurance through Cobra, which, if any of you know, is extremely expensive. So I'm looking into Obamacare plans myself in New York. And so far, the plans I looked for, some of the plan that would work for me is cheaper. However, none of my doctors take it. So you could find an Obamacare plan that's relatively inexpensive. However, some doctors that you might see and not want to change don't take it. So Obamacare and lowering the cost of affordable health care, it's all nice and dandy and it's beautiful platitudes. But in practice, Obamacare isn't what we need. The talking point about we need to, improve the Affordable Care Act. No, we need to build. Yes, you want to know how you build on the Affordable Care Act? Medicare for all. Medicare for all. So, Nancy Pelosi, it seems like she's starting to pick people over. And we've been hearing, slowly but surely, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who obviously has taken Congress by storm. She's the Justice Democrat candidate that beat Joe Crowley. I think he was the number 3 or 4 Democrat in the country. She's done some great things just in a few days as a Congresswoman-elect. She sat and actually essentially joined the protest with activists outside Nancy Pelosi's office. She, on a call this past weekend with some Justice Democrats activists, basically said, we need to primary more corporate Democrats. She is calling for aggressively a Green New Deal. I don't necessarily agree with what she's calling for. I don't think what we need is a committee. I think what we need is specific demands like banning fracking in the United States, like drastically lowering carbon emissions and penalizing companies that don't oblige. I think we don't need another committee to study the issue. The issue is look at California if you need to study the issue. Look at the just nonstop hurricanes that are wiping out communities. We know the issue. So, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez slowly but surely has been signaling that she's going to vote for Nancy Pelosi. Now, my take on what she's saying here is kind of nuanced. So first, let's read her tweets. And like I said, this is a super chat. We got to grow this GoFundMe. The GoFundMe's been a little flat, if I'm keeping it real, for a few days. So let's keep that urgency up. Even if it's $5, $10, $20, everything counts in the GoFundMe and the super chat. So I'll leave it at that. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweets today, all the challengers to Leader Pelosi are coming from her right, in an apparent effort to make the party even more conservative and bent towards corporate interests. Hard pass. So long as Leader Pelosi remains the most progressive candidate for Speaker, she could count on my support. So I could be like, I'm not going to be like your classic flying off the handle YouTube host here, slamming AOC, because I agree with her that there are no current candidates that are progressive. When you look through the people who have spoken about possibly challenging her, they are not progressives. They are centrist to conservative Democrats. However, I don't agree with her using this language somehow that they are to the right of Nancy Pelosi and somehow suggesting she remains the most progressive candidate. That's where you lose me. To me, when you look at Nancy Pelosi versus these other candidates like Tim Ryan, Seth Moulton, they're all the same. They're not much different. Nancy Pelosi's not progressive. Nancy Pelosi, frankly, I think it's being generous to even call her a centrist. I think she's a pretty moderate to conservative Democrat. I mean, go down the list. Go down the list here. I mean, quick pull up. Here's her industries that she takes money from in her career. This long career. Health professionals, $1.5 million. Health professionals is a wide umbrella. Includes, big pharma, insurance companies, lawyers and law firms, $1.2 million. Those aren't like, lawyers and law firms that represent, they're not from the ACLU. Those are financial lawyers, real estate lawyers, big financial lawyers are usually in that category. 1.1 million from Wall Street, that's securities and investment. A little over 1 million from real estate developers. I mean, that's a top 5 of pretty hefty special interests that are not as Ocasio-Cortez says, progressive. I mean, there you got $616,000 from insurance, $595,000 from lobbyists. I mean, this is not a progressive. I'm sorry, she's not progressive, and it also gets worse as far as Pelosi. But let's continue reading Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's tweets. She says, "I agree that our party should and must evolve our leadership, but change leadership should reflect an actual evolved mission. Namely, an increased commitment to the middle and working class electorate that put us here. Otherwise, it's just new figure with the same problems." So, yeah, couldn't agree more. But change leadership should reflect an actual evolved mission, namely an increased commitment to the middle and working class electorate that put us here. I'm trying to be fair to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, so I don't want to just I'm not here to bash her for the hell of it. I think she ran a brilliant campaign. I think she pounded the pavement, knocking on, thousands of doors, from what I understand. She does not take corporate money. So there's a lot to be celebrating her for and appreciating her for. But do you think Nancy Pelosi, as Speaker of the House, is reflective of an evolved mission or commitment to the middle and working class electorate that put us here? Well, from this news story that I could tell you, I don't think so. Democratic donors suggest they may withhold donations if Nancy Pelosi isn't elected Speaker. Quote, "We do not believe the competence and effectiveness of the leader is a critical component in motivating us." Excuse me, I botched that. "We do believe the competence and effectiveness of the leader is a critical component in motivating us to reach into our pockets." Well, let's see who they are. 16 Democratic donors released a letter to the House Democratic Caucus Tuesday saying they want Nancy Pelosi to be the next speaker. Because of her diligence, her powers of persuasion, her enormous effectiveness, and her adherence to our values, we have provided a portion of the financial resources required to be competitive cycle after cycle, the donors wrote in their letter, which was shared on Huffington Post. Quote, when it came to funding this recent effort to retake the majority, would we have contributed anywhere near as much as we did if Nancy was not the leader? We think not, they wrote. Some of the donors are more substantial players than others. Michael Kempner and Marcia Lafauer, for example, are donors to the Democratic Party, while some of the other signatories have not given nearly as much. In the letter, they are issuing a warning that they may not be willing to be quite so generous in their donations if the next speaker isn't Pelosi. We do believe the competence and effectiveness of the leader is a critical component in motivating us to reach in our pockets. On that basis, it is hard to imagine a replacement for Nancy in engendering the same level of confidence at this critical time. Well, let's take a look who's contributing here. So you got James Atwood. Trying to, like I said, we were getting some of this information before we went online. Don't know who he is. Philip Bourgeois-Trelat. He is with Franklin Mutual Advisors, a privately owned investment manager. What do private investment managers usually donate for? Wall Street favors and deregulation. Just keeping it real. You got Jim Chanos. And Jen's sending me this kind of hot and heavy, so I don't have all of them. Don't know who he is. Mitchell Dryzon, Longview Capital Advisors, which is real estate investment and mortgage banking. Another fantastic donor to call, saying if you don't make Nancy Pelosi speaker. So we have one who is a private investment manager. You have another who is a mortgage banker and real estate investment. I mean, come on, folks. I'm not attacking every single person on Wall Street. I'm not attacking every single private real estate person, but these are not donors that donate for Medicare for all or for deeper, tougher regulation on the banks. I mean, everybody knows that. You got, who's it? Jeff Gural. He is with Knight Frank, one of the world's leading commercial real estate advisory firms. So, what is part of the issue with gentrification all over America? Thank you, Kathy, for the $20 in the super chat. Thank you, Kathy, for the $20 in the super chat. Adam Kern, $10 in the super chat. She did not say Pelosi is a progressive. She said she was the most progressive of the options. You could disagree with that, and I see what you're saying, but those are two different statements. That's a good point. That's a good point. She's not saying she's progressive. She's saying she's more progressive than the others. What I'm telling you, Adam, is I don't agree with that. I think Nancy Pelosi and the others are all the same. And I will, at the end of this report, tell you what I think she should have done. Hey, I'm not a member of Congress. I'm just a guy on YouTube. So she doesn't have to take my advice. But I do think words matter. And suggesting that Nancy Pelosi is more progressive, to me, is not actually factual. So let's see some others here. You have Judith Hope. Judith Hope. What does Judith Hope do? Blah, 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 blah. So she's not in financial anything. She's with the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, which is the public policy arm of the Southern Baptist Church. Blah, 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 blah. Michael Kempner is a big public relations person. Marsha Laufer. Oh, boy. Marsha Laufer is with Renaissance Technologies, a hedge fund firm. You know who else is with Renaissance Technology? You know who else is with Renaissance Technology? A guy by the name of Robert Mercer. Robert Mercer. I think I got his name right. Robert Mercer. Robert Mercer was one of the biggest donors to Ted Cruz during the campaign. When Ted Cruz was defeated, he switched over to Donald Trump. He funded Breitbart.com for a very long time. He funded Breitbart.com for an extremely long time. He has pushed, I did a report on him in a while. He has pushed a lot of racial and racist media, right-wing, kind of extremist, racist dog whistling media. He has excessively donated for deregulation in the financial industry, and he's one of the biggest Republican donors in the country. So, Nancy Pelosi, this letter of big Democratic donors donating that say, if the Democrats don't reelect Nancy Pelosi as Speaker, we're not going to give money. Well, Robert Mercer's hedge fund, somebody from there is saying it. And I can promise you, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican, people from Renaissance Technologies, which is, do I have the name right? Yeah, Robert Mercer. Hold on. Robert Mercer. Yes. Robert Mercer and the tax evading. Here's just the first article that came up. Robert Mercer and the tax evading hedge fund giving millions to Republicans and Democrats. So there you go. It's all one party. Democrats, Republicans, basically the same, aside from some social issues. So, I mean, I'm reading off to you the list of top donors to the Democratic Party and Nancy Pelosi, who are in big Wall Street, big finance, big real estate, hedge funds like Renaissance Technologies that are saying, hey, you don't put our liaison in there, you don't put our servant Nancy Pelosi in there, we're taking our wallets and we're going home. So I understand the person. Let me get his name again. Did I lose your name? Oh, I understand, Adam, what you're saying, that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez isn't like, I'm for Nancy and she's so progressive, but I also think in her tweets and the language, she's not more progressive than these other candidates. I'm sorry, she's not. Correct me if I'm wrong. Send it to me. I will be happy to admit I'm wrong. Is Nancy Pelosi calling for a ban on fracking? Is Nancy Pelosi calling for Medicare for all? Is Nancy Pelosi calling for free public college? Is Nancy Pelosi calling on anything on immigration or ICE? All I've heard from Nancy Pelosi is, I'm a capitalist. We're capitalists. And by the way, I agree with Ocasio-Cortez as far as she does not have a more progressive challenger. If it were up to me, I would love somebody like Barbara Lee to run, and I think she could win. Hell, do you know you don't even have to be in Congress to run for Speaker? Hey, anybody for Stacey Abrams? That would be making lemons. What do they say? Make lemons into lemonade? If life gives you lemons, yeah. So, to me, I mean, I'll give you a few more. And Jen is researching these and sending it to me on the fly. Here's the other donors. You got Maria McKellar. Maria McKellar. Okay, I don't have her. I gave you Marshall Laufer. Dennis Mahil, 4M Investments. The company's line of business includes real estate investments, trust, or related mortgage assets, i.e. investment banker. Are you seeing a pattern here of the donors fighting to the deaths to keep Nancy Pelosi in the speakership? Keith Mistrich, Amalgamated Bank, the largest union-owned bank and one of the only unionized banks in the U.S. This is a good bank, Jen tells me. So good on that one's okay. Dick Ravitch, former lieutenant governor of New York, definitely not part of the establishment. And I can tell you on this one, I have personal experience. Ken Sunshine and Sachs, which is one of the biggest public relations firms in the United States of America. And without getting into so many details, let's just say once upon a time, that public relations firm tried to attack me and plant some bad stories that were not true on yours truly. If you Google Sunshine and Sachs, they are known for sabotaging people's Wikipedia pages. They're not known for, like, let's do good PR on the people at the lemonade stand and, you know, the people passing out the Boy Scout and Girl Scout cookies. They are known as hit job public relations. Look it up. We have Maureen White, Johns Hopkins University, SAIS Foreign Policy Institute, and I don't have Leslie Williams, but you see a pattern here, folks. These are essentially, majority of these folks highlighted are big real estate, big investment banking. These are the folks that have kept that income inequality gap exploding. I mean, that's just the facts. And by the way, big real estate, do you think they're building, you know, where do you live? Because when I go to Flint, when I go to Detroit, when I go to Alabama, when I go to St. Louis, when I go to North Carolina, all the places I've been, these real estate developers are giving big money to mayors, including this city, and governors, including this state, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. They're taking money hand over fist from big real estate. And what are they getting in return? They get to build cushy new apartment complexes for Wall Street people, for professionals, for lawyers, for doctors, for all the people, not the working class, the upper class. And guess what happens? Gentrification comes as a result. You get a Whole Foods, maybe a Trader Joe's, maybe an entertainment complex, some nice new restaurants, some nice new bars. Does everyone enjoy it? Does the working class get to enjoy it? Of course not, because gentrification is really code for ethnic cleansing. It pushes poor people out, which I'm sure some of you in the live chat experience yourself. So, again, I'm just keeping it real. When Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is doing great things, I'm going to be one of the first ones reporting on that and cheering. But I don't know. And I'm sure, I know she's met privately with Nancy Pelosi. I'm not saying go in Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and burn the place down. Obviously, she has to establish a relationship. She is going to have to work with these people. But, immediately saying, well, the other people are more conservative than her. I mean, I think you need to look a little more closer at Nancy Pelosi's record. I mean, she also said, I hope that we can move swiftly to conclude this discussion about party positions so that we could spend more time discussing party priorities, voting rights, healthcare, wages, climate change, housing, cannabis legalization, good jobs. So there's contradictions here. First of all, the vote for Speaker of the House isn't until early January. So what exactly is the rush? What is the rush to move swiftly to conclude this discussion about party positions? Nancy Pelosi cannot, or no one else can become Speaker until the first week of January. And all these things she's talking about, I'll go down the list. Voting rights. Well, I've reported on this. Did you hear anything from Nancy Pelosi, Tom Perez, Chuck Schumer on 340,000 Georgia voters having their voting rights yanked, purged off the rolls illegally? Which, by the way, I'm about to play you part of my interview with Greg Palast, an amazing investigative journalist who I just interviewed before I was live. That's why I'm a little less prepared than normal. I just interviewed him for an hour, so I'm going to play a little part of it, and I'll play the whole thing on Sunday. And I hope every single one of you join me on Sunday for our marathon live stream. If you didn't see, every Sunday, noon Eastern, live stream marathon. I don't know if I could do it, but I'm going to try and break the first week's record of 7.5 hours. You think I could do it? I could do it if you're there with me, contributing in the super chat, contributing on GoFundMe, giving me some positive reinforcement. I also need people to ask me questions because we're going to try to do like an hour Q&A too. So join the revolution, baby. Sunday, noon Eastern, super duper chat marathon. But I can't disagree with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez more here. I mean, voting rights, Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic Party is not defending the rights of voters. They're not hollering in the streets about election fraud, voter suppression, health care. Nancy Pelosi has made it very clear. She is Hillary Clinton on this. We cannot have some theoretical debate about some health care plan that will never, ever come to pass. Wages, she talks about increasing wages, but I don't see any policies that would actually make it happen. It took a very long time for Nancy Pelosi to come on board for the Fight for 15. Climate change, Nancy Pelosi's taken money from fossil fuel companies. She's not pushing her caucus or the Democrats to put forward a banning of fracking, which right now, folks, don't let the oil industry or anyone else fool you. Methane, which is emitted from this natural fracked gas, this fracked natural gas, methane is even worse in terms of climate change than carbon dioxide. I don't have the exact number, but methane is worse. Yet the oil propagandists, the oil companies, all these vultures pass it off as, it's not so bad. Methane's clean energy, cleaner. It's just cleaner to burn and less toxic for the environment. Not true. Not true at all. I mean, let's keep going. And I'm happy to hear other views on this. Housing, I don't know what's Nancy Pelosi done on affordable housing. Nothing. Cannabis legalization. You ever hear anything from Nancy Pelosi on that? So I think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is right on her points, but Stacey Abrams said it well in that interview with Jake Tapper when she refused to concede. Words matter. So when you put out tweets like this that Nancy Pelosi remains the most progressive candidate, no, she's not. They're the same. I agree that her competitors are not the solution either. But putting forth that, well, she's more progressive, well, I don't think the term progressive can be used with Nancy Pelosi based on her record, based on the donors she's taking money from. And if what Alexandria Ocasio wants is an actual evolved mission, evolved, keyword, and an increased commitment to the middle and working class, Nancy Pelosi's going to say all the right things. She's going to say all the right things. She's not going to do or follow up on any of those things, because for Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic Party, it's about getting power and keeping power. So in their mind, taking the House, they think they took the House by being anti-Trump. They're not going to do anything to ruffle feathers. They're not going to be pushing Medicare for all or free public college, because they think, wrongly, by the way, they think that would turn off possible Trump voters that they could get, which is not true based on all the polls in America that show progressive policies are wildly popular, even among Republicans. Edward says AOC is the female Obama. And I'm not sitting here like being a purist, as they say. Progressives like Jimmy Dore were always attacked as, your purity test. No, I actually understand that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders, actual progressives, you're going to have to Mitch, October 2018, Canada legalized weed. What do you think, Jordan? What do I think? Pass me some. That's what I think. I mean, I don't really smoke weed that much unless it's like put in front of my. I'm not like an individual pot smoker. It's never been my thing. I have virgin lungs, so when I smoke, oh my god, if I did a live stream smoking, that would probably go super viral, or I'd be put out of business. One or the other. Jen, what do you think? Should I do a live stream smoking the pot? Jen's probably blushing. Oh boy, Jen's seen me, smoking the, Magic Dragon. I'm pro marijuana, and by the way, it's a crime that marijuana is not legal because the only reason it's not legal, we know why, because the pharmaceutical companies don't want it, because then a lot of these pills that people don't need would be put out of business. Go for it, toke up. Legal in Canada. Hey, Cheryl, I have some Canadian in me. I have family from Canada. I haven't been to Canada in a long time. Oh, Canada. At least Canada's president is taking action against Saudi Arabia. So, my point is, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not incorrect that currently constituted, there's not a progressive alternative to Nancy Pelosi. But to say she's more progressive, that is not true. And it's elevating Nancy Pelosi to a level, frankly, that she doesn't deserve, because Nancy Pelosi is a big part of the problem. Is a big part of the problem. And Nancy Pelosi, when Obama was president, she knew she had a Democratic House and a Senate. She could have pushed Obama on at least a public option. She did not, because she takes tons and tons of cash, as I just showed you, from big investment firms, from Wall Street, from big real estate, from big financial lawyers, and that's it. So, Prime Minister, not President. Sorry, Justin Trudeau. Richard Head, you have a little Canadian you. Want a little more? I don't know what that means, but I'm okay. But I'm sorry. I don't like this talk from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I just don't like it. Got to be honest. So, before I play this short teaser clip from Greg Palast and my interview, as a reminder, we're going live this Sunday, noon Eastern. I won't be live tomorrow for Thanksgiving. I'm not sure if I'll be live Friday. We'll see. I haven't decided yet, but I definitely won't be live tomorrow. We're going to be publishing videos tomorrow on the channel. We have a lot of videos we haven't published. Definitely. Remember, this kind of reporting, this interview I just did with Greg Palast, we want to go do these things in the field. Right now, we don't have the funding to do that, unfortunately. You might see this number of $21,460 and be like, oh man, they're really raking in it. Now they have all the money they need. Not even close. Not even close. As Jen's video that we played yesterday shows, and what I'm telling you now, a lot of the money is gone to equipment and marketing resources we need, and a lot of monthly costs we have associated with trying to build the YouTube channel, build our website, those kinds of things. So you might see $21,000 there. It's not actually $21,000. A lot of it is already being earmarked for other things. So we're trying to raise even more so we have more seed money to get out in the field. So without further ado, I want to play just a little bit of my interview with Greg Palast. Again, I interviewed him for an hour. He's a great investigative journalist. He has exposed much of the election fraud that went on in Georgia. Thank you, Dirty Chivo, $5 in the super chat. Here's a little bit of it, and I'm going to play the whole thing. So as you can see, it's 50 minutes I interviewed him. So here's a little bit of it as a tease, and all of it will be played Sunday. Wonderful investigative journalist, Greg Palast, and you've been you're not part of the story, but kind of. But I wanted to move backwards because you haven't just like woken up a week before the election and been investigating voter purging and suppression. You started investigating in Georgia, in particular, Brian Kemp about 5 years ago. How did this? You've been doing this for a long time. How did you first find out about what Brian Kemp was doing down there?
Well, I started by investigating that white supremacist scamp named Chris Kobach, who just lost the governorship of Kansas, but he was a Secretary of State. He is Trump's Purgeon general, the guy who comes up with all the ways that you can remove voters of color from the voter rolls. So I was actually investigating a scheme created by Chris Kobach of Kansas called Interstate Crosscheck. This is his way of determining voters who vote twice by registering in 2 states. And that led me to Brian Kemp, because Kemp started working with Kobach and using his list to remove voters from the voter rolls. So this investigation began for Al Jazeera and Rolling Stone in 2013. So I've been on Kemp's trail for 5 years. And so it's been a long haul. At the moment, I'm working with Salon.com on this and other outlets, and BET, Black Entertainment Television. But at the moment, so like I say, for Rolling Stone, Al Jazeera, this started 5 years ago, and so Kemp has been burning down those voter rolls for many years, and way before he was running for governor. And interestingly enough, I even spent time with Stacey Abrams as a legislator, as the head of the Democratic legislative minority, going over these lists. She was stunned because she didn't know that Kemp was pulling off these tricks of burning through the voter rolls. So it's been a long time.
Now, I know the answer to this, but a lot of people, I've covered what's going on in Georgia a little bit from afar. A lot of people wonder, how are there no conflict of interest laws where you have someone like Brian Kemp, who was Secretary of State for many years? Obviously, he wasn't running for governor the whole time, but how are there no laws that prohibit someone like Brian Kemp from making the decisions about purges if he's then going to run for governor? We saw it with Chris Kobach in Georgia. I mean, go back to the year 2000. Kathleen Harris was a Secretary of State of Florida. Meanwhile, she's a co-chair, I believe, of George W. Bush's campaign. Are there laws that prohibit basically trying to purge voters off the rolls in the election you're running in?
You would think so, but as far as I could tell, no. The problem is not even that. I mean, obviously, Kemp is removing voters he doesn't like. You get to choose the voters. As Secretary of State, Brian Kemp not only chose the voters. In other words, the idea is that the voters should choose you, but instead he was choosing the voters by removing over 500,000 voters, at least 340,000 illegally. I can get to that in a second. But he also chose, where there were polling stations. The conditions, which ballots, and here's the one that's really dangerous, which ballots are accepted, which ballots are counted. People, we assume, in the 6th grade, Mrs. Gordon told you have an election in America and we vote and we count the ballots. No, we don't. In 2016, there were officially 2.7 million so-called provisional ballots. People showed up, their names were on the voter rolls, they got these ballots, and over 1 million were thrown in the garbage. Even though there's every bit of evidence that every single one, no exception, of those 1 million that were thrown away are legitimate voters, American citizens who got shafted out of their vote by the system. And Kemp sets the rules for which provisional ballots get counted, which absentee ballots. People love to mail in ballots. They say, oh, we don't like to vote on machines. We like to mail in our ballot. So you're saying that people are dishonestly playing with the machines, but they're happy to count the one you mail in. Good luck. Over 1 million absentee ballots are thrown in the garbage every election cycle. 1 million. Okay. So as the thing is, so you have this conflict. But to me, the big conflict is, why do we have partisan voting officials? Why do we have partisan secretaries of state ever? Why is this not a civil service function that should be run by people who are beyond political control? And in America, I mean, this is insane. Look, if Putin did this, if he said, I'm picking all the voting, well, he does. I pick all the voting officials. I count which ballot. I decide which ballots get counted. I decide who gets to vote. I decide where you get to vote, when you get to vote, even, who gets to set early voting hours, etc. We'd say, there's Russia. It's so undemocratic. It's totalitarian. No different than the state of Georgia, state of Kansas, state of Arizona. Basically, this is a national scourge.
Right. And, you hear this notion that, well, if you haven't voted in a while, you could be taken off. But that's not the law. You're not supposed to be. You're not supposed to be taken off the voting rolls if you haven't voted in a while. And you're also supposed to be, by law, given notice if you've been purged off the voting rolls in time for you to correct it. It seems like there are laws on the books, but Brian Kemp and others that you just mentioned basically have just tossed that to the side.
Well, yeah. I mean, one thing first of all, if you read the New York Times, you get the misimpression. I mean, that's one of the problems when you have, there's the establishment media, which is what I call lazy fuck media. These are people who, they work from a press release. They don't even bother to read judicial decisions. So, for example, after a Supreme Court decision of June of this year, in which civil rights groups filed lawsuits against John Husted, another conflicted SOB Republican who removed 500,000 voters from the voter rolls. And it was misreported that the Supreme Court said it was okay to remove people who had missed a couple of elections. No. Under the National Voter Registration Act of 1993, it says in, big black letters that you cannot lose your registration because you decided not to vote. Americans have a right to vote. Americans have a right not to vote. Okay, so how do they get away with it? But yet they did use this non-voting or what the state called non-voting, because they just lose your records anyway. So you miss a couple elections, and guys like Brian Kemp, John Husted, Chris Kobach started removing voters from the voter rolls in the hundreds of thousands. Now, what they did was, what the court said was, yeah, the law says you can't remove people for not voting, but you could use it as evidence that they moved away. In other words, they didn't vote, so maybe they moved away. So they said, well, you can't use just non-voting. So they said, oh, you got to get a postcard. Now, this is not a postcard. This is before you get purged. Well, the postcards look like total, complete junk mail. You just throw them out. Most people do. Well, you're beginning to throw out your vote. So they say you didn't return the card, you didn't vote, and then the counties are supposed to do an extra review, but they don't know what the hell to do. They just get a list from a guy like Kemper or whatever, and they cross people's names off, and that's it. So, no, it's not true that not voting, you'll lose your vote. That's the law. That's also the Constitution.
Right.
Which is that, but they do it anyway. So wait a minute. So that's a big problem, and it's always misrepresented in the press. But I will say, if you miss votes, get ready to lose your vote, legal or not legal. It is illegal. And I should say one thing I did is I actually sued Brian Kemp to get. As a journalist, there's a special provisions of the National Voter Registration Act, which are like a souped-up Freedom of Information Act. I can get his files. Mm-hmm. So I got the names and addresses of everyone he purged for supposedly moving because they didn't vote and they missed a postcard, and I had experts in what they call address list hygiene. Now, this is interesting. Wow. Here's the bad news. They're experts who can tell you where every single American was at 3 p.m. last Tuesday. That's just the truth. Sorry about that. In fact, here's a little secret they don't want to tell you. Everyone in America has a Social Security number and a special PIN number used by every single commercial enterprise in America. They don't talk about it, but and you don't even know what that PIN number is. Sorry. And so you can be traced. So we actually found out where everyone was, and we found out that 340,134 people, we have their names and addresses, never moved, Mr. Kemp, but they lost their vote. And then he never sent them a note saying, by the way, you've lost your right to vote, so you should re-register or challenge this. So I went to Georgia with a guy named Raheem Shabazz, went with him to vote. Everyone's saying you got to vote. Stacey Abrams is running. It's very important to vote. So he, make sure you're registered. He didn't think about it. He said, well, I've been registered for years. Suddenly, he hears that I have put that, Greg Palast has put the list of purge voters on my website. So he went to my website and found out he was purged. He re-registered, but it was after the deadline for this election. So he was out of luck. He did go and he did get a provisional ballot, but they told him bluntly, because you have a right to a provisional ballot, we ain't counting it.
Well, I wanted to ask you about provisional ballots because
And that is your tease. If you liked what you saw, I'm here to tell you that was the tame part of the interview. That was the tame part of the interview. I think it kind of went off the rails a little later. And he had a little story about Jake Tapper. Apparently 20 years ago, Greg Palast was reporting for Salon.com. Back when Salon.com was like fairly progressive. Did I bring condoms? I don't think you could have sex through Skype, Zolix. So no. He was at Salon 20 years ago, and his assistant was Jake Tapper. So this was long before Jake Tapper was on CNN or anything. I'm not going to give you the story, but he has quite the story that I don't think he's ever shared publicly. And not so good on Jake. So you'll hear that. You'll hear some other great reporting notes from him. I just played 10 minutes, so there's another 40 minutes of that interview. So how are you going to get it, you might ask? Well, you got to tune in on Sunday. Got to tune in, baby. And I might even twerk. Again, depending on how much money is raised. And by the way, while we were playing that teaser, we raised $110 on the GoFundMe. Thank you to Carrie. Carrie Nance contributed $110, which brings us to $21,570. If two more people contribute right now, we'll get to 350 people, which is a huge milestone. So that's at $21,570. I'd love, before I eat turkey tomorrow, to be at $22,000. So, about $430 to go. And we'd love to pass 350 people. So keep them coming in the GoFundMe. And, of course, thanks to the Super Chat people. And Greg Palast, honestly, like, when we talk about status quo, that there's nothing else like this, there really is very little investigative journalism in America. And Greg Palast is one of them. He also has a great film about elections, which I think is called The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, which exposes what Chris Kobach was doing in Kansas, cross-check. And it's really important. And I asked him about this towards the end of the interview. Well, as a journalist, so me as a journalist, him as a journalist, but also our readers, our viewers, whatever, if you're told, the way to fight back isn't violently, but the way to fight back is through activism and by voting. Well, if voting is rigged and the election is rigged and the system is rigged, whether it be from people getting purged, provisional ballots, having to come and pee in a cup and, give your blood, show your blood type to be able to vote. What's the point? What's the point of even fighting? And I thought his answer, I wanted to know for me, because I get discouraged as a journalist when you break your back and you work all these crazy hours and crazy days and, you give it your all, as Jen, who's in the live chat, can attest. And it seems so rigged either way. He had a really, I thought, inspiring answer. So definitely show up on Sunday for our marathon live stream at 12 o'clock Eastern time. And we'll try to have some other exciting goodies. I reached out to some other folks for interviews too. We're trying to report and interview people during the week to air some of it on Sunday, because although I like to talk, it's not exactly easy for one person to go for 7 hours straight. But hey, if that's what I have to do to raise money for the media revolution, so be it. So, before I go, I wanted to, Thanksgiving is actually a holiday that I feel kind of mixed on, because obviously it has very, very negative connotations for Native Americans, and I don't think we should forget that Thanksgiving, is a great time for us to be with our family and reflect, but it's also kind of, if you really want to look at the history, about us, genocide and cleansing of Native Americans of this country, seizing their land, robbing them, murdering them, raping them, and just terrible, terrible things. So I don't think we should lose sight of that, that this is not in the historical record a happy celebration. And I learned that at Standing Rock. So, but I do wanna just for a minute, to 170 of you watching, and yes, Jen just put this in, super, super important. We have to grow our email list, like this minute. We need to grow our email list, so go to statuscoup.com and enter your email. I believe it's towards the bottom of the page. We really, really want to be able to tell you directly and not have to rely on YouTube because YouTube is suppressing us. They don't give notifications out routinely. We want to be able to tell you what we're working on, when we have special marathon live streams, when we break news, we want to release it on our email list first, all those good things. So please, please, please go to statuscoup.com, enter your email. It's super, super important. And yes, Zachary Kirkpatrick, it's not completely ready yet, but we do have our membership section on the site. And Zachary Kirkpatrick, I just want to alert you, Zachary Kirkpatrick, and remember this moment. Remember this moment. Zachary Kirkpatrick, you were the first official member of Status Coup. We will cut that. We're going to cut this moment and save it. Because if we one day get to like 1 million, 2 million, who knows? You were the first member of Status Coup. So we now have paid membership on our website. Zachary signed up today. We haven't promoted it yet because Jen wants to add a few things to it, but we technically have it. So you could go become a paid monthly member, and it's up there now, and you could see all the things you get. So Zachary, thank you for basically creating history. Jen is setting it up. So we are a startup. We don't have any other help besides Jen, myself, and Ty. And Jen is doing 100 things at once while raising 2 kids. So don't think that we're like amateurs here and things are taking a long time. It's because we don't have any help. It's very few people. So I wanted to, and thank you again, Zachary, and anyone who wants to become a paid member, we're going to push it hard when it's ready, but you could technically go and sign up to be a paid member now, and that is another way. That doesn't mean if you're a patron, we're not getting rid of our Patreon. That's patreon.com/statuscoup, but we are creating a member section going forward to create membership for our company, because who knows what could happen with Patreon one day. We don't want to we don't want to rely on Patreon or any other place. We want to rely on our own membership section. So I wanted to just end first telling you that, remember, Thanksgiving is about murdering and raping and genocide of the Native Americans. But I also want to, I just want to be honest with you and tell you how thankful I am to you guys. Because, if Jen was with me here, she would be able to attest. On basically a year ago, it was the year anniversary was a couple days ago, but a year ago, I was let go from the Young Turks. You all know the story. I've already addressed it. And it was really a low point in my life. Not so much the getting fired, because that happens in life. I mean, that was the first time I'd been fired, but getting fired wasn't, it wasn't fun. Obviously, I didn't want to be fired, and it's not fun to be fired, but it was a low point in my life for all of the things that were surrounding that. There was a lot of just plain out lies that were said about me. And when you work hard in life, whether it's as a journalist or whatever you do in life, when you work hard, in my case, for your entire, basically starting at 17 to 20, 17 to 30, through internships and mindless, shitty corporate media jobs, and you just work, you pay your dues, and you finally get to do the things you want, and you're starting to, in my way, create change and cover stories and cover communities that I think are basically being cleansed out of the discussion and, frankly, out of America. It really, I was kind of at that point in a very dark cave and space. And it's like anything in life, if you go through a bad breakup or you have a bout with depression or anxiety or whatever, we all go through our things, it doesn't feel like it's ever going to get better. When things are bad, it feels like this is the permanent state, and it feels like, maybe you just lost the life lottery, maybe you're just screwed. And I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, I wasn't looking so hot last November, December, January. I put on some weight. This beard was pretty out of control. I was definitely, I'd say, drinking a little too much to just deal with my depression over the whole situation. I was being just totally smeared all over the internet with falsehoods. And, as somebody who was raised as by a good Jewish mama, obviously I was raised to just like put women on a pedestal and treat them better than yourself. So the accusation against me, to have that smeared, and to have that kind of horrible, violent act smeared against me, it just really, it really shook me to the core and made me wonder and have to think about who I was as a person, what the next, do I have a future? Not just a future in media, but like, do I have a future in life? Because, that kind of accusation that was false and is false hangs over you. I mean, it's still, if I'm keeping it real, it's still, if you type my name in Google, it's not fun. And I've had to experience, and I've had that hanging over me, in a lot of different areas of life still. And this isn't about a pity party for me. I'm trying to get to the point where, Jen and some other people, when I was in my darkest period through this, they would send me messages from viewers. And I got messages from viewers on Facebook and YouTube and email and all these things that honestly just blew my mind. And literally on the darkest of days were the only thing that made me just see tomorrow. And just people giving me stories about what I did for them by going to Standing Rock or Flint or whatever, things that I never knew. I've gotten written letters from people mailed to me, or mailed to our P.O. box, and even like people who just give $10. One woman literally sent a $100 check and she said she was on food stamps. Just these handwritten letters about how they believe in me and believe in us and what we've done for them. And that's really in life, if you can do anything that affects people and inspires people or makes people think or makes people want to do something, it really touches me. I'm not somebody who like cries easy and stuff like that, but Jen could tell you that this was a very bad period in my life. It's very difficult it's very difficult in this digital internet age. Lies spread at the speed of light. And when lies are corrected, it's not always put on the front page, those corrections. And the only thing that has kept me going, I mean, I'll be totally honest with you people, because I keep it real. Right now, I am pretty low. I'm kind of bleeding through my life savings because I'm not taking money from this company yet. I'm the CEO of the company, and we're trying to grow the company's money, and I'm not taking money. I've taken very, very little money, mostly reimbursements to myself for things. So like I'm going through my life savings right now just to pay my rent and food and all those things. But I will tell you, and I said this to Jen the last time she was here, if you would have told me last November or last Thanksgiving that 1 year from that time today, I'd have 147 people watching me on a deeply, deeply, severely suppressed YouTube. It should be more. If you would have told me that we have 22,000 subscribers, if you would have told me that we have 21,570 that we've raised in 2 months from 348 people. Hope we get that last two by the time I finish this sappy speech. 2 more people to 350. If you would have told me that we have any resources to go out in the field and cover things, if you would have told me that just that I could have a career and that I could do what I love. And what I love, to tell you the truth, what I love most of all is not here, like in my apartment. Jen could tell you that. Like, it's not that I don't like it, but like where I live, and Jen saw it because she was with me, and I'm most excited, is out in the country, knocking on doors, on the ground, speaking to people, getting the truth, exposing the truth, and giving a microphone to people that wouldn't have it otherwise. That's what I love. And I said to Jen recently, you know, it was a terrible, terrible road to get here, but I'm actually happier than I was. I'm happier than I was a year ago, to be honest with you. It's harder. It's harder. It's a lot harder to go out on your own and have to raise money. And I don't like having to repeat in a live chat 27 times that this is a super chat and, you know, the GoFundMe. It's, you know, I don't like asking for money, but no one else is going to grow this company but us and you. I mean, that's the only way. We are going to target sponsors. We are going to target to get funding. We're going to be transparent about where that funding is coming from. We're not taking money from the very type of donors that I just reported on that Nancy Pelosi does. I mean, it would be a lot easier if we said, to hell with it. Let's get some money from hedge funds. Let's get some money from oil companies. Let's get some money from real estate developers. Let's get some money from Silicon Valley. But we're not going to do that because I'm not going to sell out. It's just not in me, and it's not in Jen. I'd rather beg for money from you than beg and grovel from the very people destroying this country. Thank you, Nowoki, €2 in the super chat. But I just wanted to tell you, you know, you hear a lot of people when they go up and give thank you speeches, when they win awards and things like that, they say, I couldn't do it without you. I couldn't do it without you. And I'm here, I think a lot of them, it's a little bit of bullshit, but I'm here to tell you, not only that we cannot do this without you, but I would literally not be here without you. If it was not for those messages, those kind messages that I got in November, that I got in December, that I got in January, that I've continued to get all throughout this year, if it was not for those people that believed in me, who knew who I was as a man, that those things said about me were not true, that actually looked into it, that did the research, that looked into it, and saw that this was not true. For the people that sent me $10 in cash with heartfelt letters. I try when I'm live to read the comments for every single person who, whether it's a super chat or not, the people who say nice things. You know, this is a hard job. You sacrifice a lot. You sacrifice relationships. Jen sacrifices time with her kids. When I'm on the road, you're sacrificing a lot of things, whether it be, you know, hobbies, dating, a lot of things to do real journalism. But those sacrifices are worth it because I know that you guys really, really want it and need it, and it helps you, and it affects you, and it inspires you or enrages you or makes you do something, whatever it is. So that's really it. I wanted to thank you because, you know, pretty much as far as a career, aside from being charged for murder, which hopefully that's not next, the worst of the worst happened to me in the last calendar year, and the only reason that I'm sitting here is because you guys lifted me up. And Jen could tell you, because she was there in person, I looked like a shadow of myself last November and December. I looked like a little puppy dog looking out the window sad. So, thank you. I'm very thankful for you. And by the way, this Sunday, as part of our marathon live stream, not only will I be playing those that long 1-hour interview with Greg Palast, I have the Top Turkey of the Year awards. You want to know who the biggest turkeys of the years are? You want to know who the biggest turkeys are? And that means the biggest assholes, biggest jerk-offs, the most corrupt, the biggest frauds. Oh, I'm coming for you. I'm going to have the biggest turkeys of the year this Sunday. And you know what? I'm going to start resting up my vocal cords. I'm going to start resting up my vocal cords, doing a little relaxation techniques, because I'm going to try and break my record. We're trying to go past 7.5 hours. Can we do it? I think we can. Zachary, Jeff Bezos is up there. Zachary, I don't want to tell you who's on the list, but he might be on the list. So, as I wrap up, here's what you could do before you eat turkey. before you eat turkey. Definitely. I want to remind people, make sure if you subscribe to this channel, make sure you've clicked on it for all notifications. I know that doesn't necessarily mean YouTube is going to send you a notification, but that's your best chance. Secondly, go to our website, statuscoup.com. Jen, put it in the chat. Tell them where it is on the website. Go to the website, enter your email. We cannot grow this business without growing our email list. We're not going to email you breakfast, noon, and night. We're not going to email you stupid stuff. We're going to email you sometimes asking you for money. We're going to email you sometimes new content. We're going to email you sometimes a thank you. We're going to email you sometimes stupid photos. We're going to email you behind the scenes stuff. But we need to grow our email list. So I'm not asking you for my health. I'm asking you because that's how we're going to build this company up. You could also, when you go to our site, become a paid member. If you're a Patreon subscriber, you don't have to leave Patreon. Our Patreon will still exist. If you're not a Patreon subscriber, go check out our Become a Member section. You have a $5 monthly plan and a $10 monthly plan. You get a little more at $10, a little less at $5, and that's how we're doing it right now. Obviously, our model long term is not GoFundMe. The GoFundMe is for equipment, for marketing resources, for advertising resources, and of course to go in the field. So, of course, if you're feeling kind, if you believe in me, if you believe in Jen, if you believe in Ty, our GoFundMe right now is at $21,570. 348 people have contributed. Our goal for the end of November is 25,000. That's, not going to be easy. About 9 days left, so we could do it, but right now we're not there. But I believe in you guys, so even if it's $5, $10, $20, whatever it is, you know the drill. $100 gets you a hat or a shirt. $127 gets you both. $200 will get you a badass, that white swag bag with some signed goodies in there. $250 gets you that badass backpack, and there's the hats and the shirts. So, and Jen has already started sending and mailing out some of them. We got delayed by mailing them out because the company hadn't sent us everything yet. So that's the deal, folks. Have a wonderful holiday. Don't eat too much turkey. And as always, if you have a crazy Republican uncle at dinner, if you have a nauseating, neoliberal, Hillary-loving auntie at the dinner table, feel free to show them some of our videos. Maybe, you never know, maybe you'll pull them over. Thank you for watching and have a fantastic holiday. Peace out.